Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Your choices. Your actions. That's what makes you who you are.
Superman. He's not a man. He's an it. He's somehow become the focal point of the entire world's conversation. I will not accept that.
I cleaned your boots. I'll go get them for you.
You have a dog?
Hey, Jennifer Walden here for Mix's Award Season Event 2025. We are talking to the sound team on James Gunn's Superman. We have production sound mixer Lee Orloff, supervising sound editor, sound designer Dave Acord, supervising sound editor Katy Wood, and re-recording mixers Chris Boys and Tim LeBlanc. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining me to talk about Superman. This film was really fun.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Hey,
Thank
Jennifer.
you. Yeah.
So this film begins by throwing the audience right into it, right? We see Superman, he's defeated, he's falls to the snowy ground. We meet the dog, Crypto. We go inside the Fortress of Solitude. We meet his team of helper bots. Let's look at this opening clip, actually, that shows all of this cool stuff.
Superman!
No need to thank us, sir, as we will not appreciate it. We have no consciousness whatsoever. Merely automatons here to serve. Meet 12. She's new.
He looked at me.
14 fractured bones.
Damage to bladder, kidney, large intestine, lungs.
With a healthy dose of yellow sun, we'll have him up and at him in no time.
So how did you use this opening to kind of set up audience expectations for what the sound of this Superman film is going to be like?
I think viewing Superman as human was kind of an important element in this movie, and seeing him vulnerable right off the bat sort of tips us to where this movie is going, to the sort of the overall theme of the movie, that he is one of us, that he is not this indestructible god, and he has a kind of a lovable family pet that's maybe a little unruly, but it's a highly relatable thing. It's a great way to start the movie to kind of tip us off to what we're in for.
And mix-wise, using music, spreading things out into the surround speakers, how did you set up audience expectations for what this mix was going to look like, sound like, how this experience was going to be in terms of like using the surround space and deciding, how big the effects are going to be, how spaced out the music's going to be?
We start off with a classic Superman theme re-envisioned. to set the table before we even see Superman in this isolationist environment. And the music was delivered fairly wide, so we had a lot of flexibility to move elements around and create this soundscape for the audience to jump into.
As you recall, the movie opens with just sort of atmospheric sound, and then the landing of Superman is this really cataclysmic event, which in a way kind of hands over to the music to then respond to that and kind of give us presence of what's happening here. And so the opening of the film was a dance of, sound effects playing a big storytelling role, but then handing over and letting music take us down on a ride. And I think it's really fun. Crypto arrives in a fury of a hurricane, and you don't know it's Crypto as the audience, and then he reveals himself to be this, as Dave said, this lovable pet. But I love those kind of tricks that, they're not being tricky. They're just, Crypto is a hurricane, and it announces his personality right out of the gate.
And then he gets drug into the Fortress of Solitude, and it's this whole other world. It's, it's quiet. There's a lot of technology. You have his bots that are there to help him. It's this huge shift in sound. I mean, the second he goes through the door.
And the bots, dialogue-wise, I wanted them to sound like the original Superman, so that they have, and the projection of Jor-El, the hologram. So it has this vintage tape flange sound that, using technology they would have had in the 70s. I wanted to throw a little bit back to the original film in there.
And how do you mic up a bot, Lee?
Yeah, they're in pajama suits, because they're all CG characters, so we're used to that. That actually is one of our happy moments on the set, because we're dealing with costumes that will then be removed, as opposed to the superhero outfits, which we have to protect, and sometimes are made of materials that are not necessarily sound friendly. So we love the bots, and we had a great cast. Just great characters. So they went to town, and James certainly had fun with them. And that's part of that sequence. There's the assistant who, makes a joke about he looked at me, and, so there's humor that the bots bring to the scene.
I'm guessing Katy enjoyed that as well, because pajamas don't make a whole lot of noise against your microphones, which is a big challenge.
Yeah, that's very true. Although, unfortunately, sometimes there's still overlaps with principal cast, because they were actually there in person, as against just being ADR that was replaced later. So they were able to actually interact with each other. But it did, it still presented some challenges. But yeah, none of the clothing challenges that we have, the wardrobe malfunctions that we have with others.
Right. Yeah. We had the real actors. So that's, of course, you have the whole ensemble energy that you get from having real actors, as opposed to just temps that are going to be ADR'd.
So let's look at this next clip. This is the kaiju fight. This was a lot of fun. Let's take a look at the clip.
Get out of here!
was first spotted early this morning in a Jitters coffee shop about 7 feet tall, but it has apparently been growing.
Everybody okay? Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
So what were some of the challenges in terms of capturing the dialogue here? Also, the crowd sounds. Were those on set, or were all of these extras just kind of miming their parts while they were on set for the scene?
The crowd was would have been instructed not to speak. There is some movement there because otherwise it could interfere with the principal dialogue, as well as it depends on what contract negotiations might have gone on as well. But Lee can speak more to the vibe on set with the actual crowd there.
Yeah, I know that basically that's a loop group that we have to basically protect the principal's dialogue. We're out in the middle of Cleveland on busy street, so there's other issues that we're dealing with. So we don't want the crowd to then be something else that we have to deal with. And since they're hired, we can tell them what to do and behave and be part of the movie and be part of the final mix by staying out of the production track.
And what about the sounds of the kaiju? What went into those? I love the vocalizations. And of course, the first time that we're introduced to it, he's just a little monster. He's like a dog-sized monster. Nice. And then when we finally see him, he's like huge, like bigger than skyscrapers. So tell me about the vocalizations.
So when he's the mini kaiju that they release from his cage, it's basically a pitched up, sped up jaguar. That kind of inadvertently has this Tasmanian devil kind of vibe that James really liked. This sort of kind of thing that it kind of does. And then the larger version, the kaiju later in the movie, we went through a few different options, as you do when you make sound effects. You offer, options A, B, C, or D, or E, and you just kind of start to zero in on what he likes. I got a little lucky in that one, that it was in the first round of choices, and it has a sort of electric guitar kind of rock vibe to the roar. It's got this sort of fuzzy metal sort of sound to it that James really likes, that kind of vibe. He's kind of a heavy metal guy, and it's a common theme for us to sort of, if you've seen James's movies, he's big into music, and that's a big theme for him. And so having the sound effects sort of dip into that world a little bit, even in a subtle way, like making the creature's voice kind of an electric guitar in a way, I think appeals to his sensibilities.
One other thing that I really liked in this scene, sound design wise, was when Superman emerges from like the busted up pavement, like the pavement's breaking up and the pavers are kind of popping up. And that sounds so cool. It almost has this like melodic sound to it as the pavers come up. I loved that.
Thank you. Yeah. There's an intent there as it goes through the pavers and then bumps up to the sidewalk and then to the bricks and then back to the street. There's all different textures as it goes, but all with kind of the same rhythm. So it does have a sort of musical quality to it until he bursts out at the end.
And so let's talk about the mix here, right? You got big destruction sounds. You have Superman's dialogue. You have all the crowd sounds. You have the monster sounds. So what were some of the choices that you made on the dub stage to help you best present the scene?
Chris, you remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember that.
This was a challenging sequence for Chris and I, mix-wise.
It was, and a hat off to Tim because Tim's one of the more collaborative mixers that I've mixed with, and it really took the two of us working together. I will say that two of my favorite sounds in the film, two of my favorite, not the only favorites, are both the sound of the kaiju and we get introduced to Green Lantern, and his sounds just cracked me up. I just thought Dave did a home run with that. But
the eye poker is amazing.
It's a difficult scene because in a movie you have to be aware of, well, as a mixer, you have to be aware of your audience at all times, and your first audience is your director, and so it's a really fine line to put a beast of this size on the screen and have this creature, step up and roar and make incredibly loud sounds. But you have to earn in a way, you have to earn those sounds. You have to earn the right to play them. And you also have to know that when he may be making a loud sound, you don't necessarily want to play that loud. Again, it's all about taking the audience on a ride in such a way that they're having fun and they're engaged, and letting the music do the job of letting the emotion of the scene develop. And so it's a very fine line. And in a scene like this, we can lose the audience by making 2 or 3 mistakes. There's really no room for error. And working for James, we're well aware of that, because I don't know how many times he said to me, thank you for not going overboard. So in this scene, we were definitely aware of that we needed to make Kaiju be the force that he is, but not so much of a force that we take our audience out. And it's really easy to make cool sounds really loud, but that's not a movie and that's not mixing. And so that was our challenge on this. And I think, we kind of, sometimes you have to break it to figure out where you've gone too far or where you haven't gone far enough. And we spent a lot of time making 25,000 decisions so that when James came and heard it, he could respond to 100 that we maybe didn't do perfectly, but he didn't have to respond to everything. So, it was a difficult scene, but a lot of fun at the end. In the end,
and there was a challenge of keeping the joy of the music in, and there's also comedic beats in a big action sequence. And how do we put the brakes on and not have the audience feel like the brakes are put on? Now we get to laugh for a minute and then back into the mayhem, and that took a lot of time to craft that.
I probably laughed the hardest at Mr. Terrific's garage door opening.
The slow door.
The slow garage door.
That is a slow garage door.
The world's slowest. In this scene too, I mean, in this kaiju scene, we have a lot of dialogue, right? We got the Justice Gang that comes in, and
we meet all of them for the first time.
Yeah, and everyone's so active. They're all doing crazy stuff. So what was that like, capturing the dialogue on people that are flying around?
It's just another superhero challenge. People on wires. I mean, people in their outfits. Everyone's got vinyl on. It's just our world. I mean, it's just fantastic. And I got to say, they just throw you to the wolves when it comes to, you figure it out, because it's not that it's not collaborative. It's just, that's your problem. We love this look, and effects has got them coming in on, being lowered down on crane rigs, and everything is about getting that shot. And of course, in that particular moment, we're also revealing the team. So it's a big moment, and, we have to do our part, but the dialogue is supportive. The main thing is that moment is realized as per James' image, his vision for it.
Yeah, and to Lee's credit on that, it's pretty much all production. It's not ADR that was replaced later. We were able to use the production for that, and that helps keep the audience anchored to meeting these characters for the first time, because it's really them. It's not. There's nothing that's going to put an audience off.
And James loves the ensemble, so he wants them to overlap each other. He wants to keep that alive. And so when they come in and they're all making their way to camera, there's asides and there's, elbows up and all that fun stuff that the team is doing. It's, I love seeing, listening to the mix in James movies because production track is king. I mean, you make such great efforts to preserve it. So that's why I try to keep everyone honest on set, saying, don't write this off because it's going to make it. Just give me, let me have my 10 seconds. Just give me a little consideration because I know that James wants to keep it. And it doesn't take much to work together for the team, or for the movie for that matter.
The whole soundtrack's built around your recording, so it's the better they are, the better the movie is.
Yep.
Yeah,
and speaking of overlapping dialogue, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Standing on the shoulders of Lee for many years because he delivers such pristine tracks to Katy and all these teams, and I don't know how many shows you and I've worked on together, Lee, but we don't really. You're in production, I'm in post production, but I always know that we're gonna be in the mix in the best hands when Lee has control of the production mix.
Yep,
that's all.
And that's, I'm looking at Dave, and it's so funny because Dave's been on that other side. Chris, you and I have actually been once in the entire decades we were actually on set at the same time. But Dave and I spent months together in hurricanes and mud and all kinds of fun stuff. So he knows exactly what we go through on the set. And it's just a matter of just trying to make people understand you're not doing it for the sound department, you're doing it for the movie. And that is enough to sometimes make the difference because it's easier for them to get behind the movie than these three whining guys who are always asking for, well, can we do it this way?
Why are you putting the generator there?
Anyway, that's been my approach all these years, is just try to get people to realize that it's all for the purpose of, as you say, give the audience everything we can. And let's not shortchange the actors because this is, James has crafted the performance he wants. Let's keep it all the way along and, make sure it makes it right into the audience sitting in the seats.
And this next clip that we have, it's a true showcase of the dialogue. This is Lois interviewing Superman for the first time.
Ready?
Let's do it, Cronkite.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
Recently, you've come under a lot of fire for what some might.
It's a lot of fire.
It's a lot. Today, the Secretary of Defense said he was going to look into your actions in Bravia. That's funny?
It's not funny. It's just, come on. My actions? I stopped a war.
Maybe.
Not maybe. I did.
Okay. How?
Well, Bravia invaded Jarhanpur, and I showed up and told them that wasn't right.
And
smashed some tanks and things, and a couple of planes and some other stuff. There were no casualties and no significant injuries.
did you interact at all with the president of Bravia, Vasil Gurkos?
A very small amount.
What's a very small amount?
That was between us.
This is all on the record.
Yeah, but that conversation was between the two of us.
So this is a quiet scene. Dialogue is absolutely king here. Can you talk about capturing the scene during production? Was this a practical location or was it a soundstage?
It was a set. And in fact, the fun thing about this is this was day one. So we started off with the big scene, the big 10, 11 pager between our main number 1 and 2, throw them right into the fire. And we did it over the course of 2 days. But it's a set. And there's the fun stuff. There's multiple cameras. There's a lot of glass. There's French doors. There's reflections. Once you start bringing in multiple cameras, then you can stay out of one, but you can't stay out of them all. And we're back. Basically, we're in a world where we haven't yet reached the point where put the boom where you want it, we'll paint it out. That's not yet where production's at. And we like to have that conversation a lot, but the conversation is not done. And so we're still dealing with basically staying out of frame and at the same time knowing that the way the mix happens is a combination of time-aligned boom and lav. And that's just the way things are mixed now. So you gotta always have the actors wired, and you also at the same time don't ever want to give up that boom, because the two of them together are essential in terms of bringing all of the humanity of the performance out. You can't have them push you out and say, well, just wire them up, because that's not the sound that the scene deserves. So we're always pushing to always have boom. And in this scene, it seems, it's just a couple people. Well, she's on the couch, he's in the chair. He's 6 foot something, and she stays down low on the couch. So the boom and plants, all those things have to come to play all the time. So you keep bringing those two elements for all the each one of the characters in. And certainly that was something over the course of the 2 days that we were working closely with our camera brothers and everyone else to work together in those sets. It's look like a piece of cake, right? But you take a look at it, and there's all the issues of shadows and reflections and all the fun stuff and framing.
It looks like a piece of cake to mix too.
Yeah, right.
And cut.
It's also a passionate debate. So they're both yelling. They're trying to be, heard over each other's. And you saw all that overlapping line and all of that yelling. They're probably bleeding onto each other's mics.
Right.
What were the challenges of that, dealing with that in post to make it sound?
Take them into the kitchen, because we leave the living room. It's a great scene.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you just don't see 10 pagers in this kind of movie.
No.
When we screen tested the actors, because I was there months before we started shooting, and we put together, James put together different combinations of people and had them play that scene, the different Loises and the different Clarks, in combination with each other. It was just great to then get to set day one, and we had our choices, and now we were going to do it for real. So it was kind of, it was a really special experience for me to show up day one, and that was what first day on the set was.
Katy, anything to add about the dialogue editing on that scene? Any of the challenges that you may have faced?
Yeah, it took a while. It was actually the first scene that I cut as well, because James was very concerned about the scene, not because he was questioning anything to do with the production recordings, but more that he just wanted to make sure that all the overlaps of which he was aware were going to still work. So I spent a long time on the scene and did like a mini mix in the box for him and sent it back to Picture Editorial. And for the most part, after the first cut that had been done on the scene, it barely changed for the rest of the entire post process. So that scene in and of itself, as being the most important, also really set the tone in the same way, like you point out, setting the tone with the opening. Those two scenes really kind of gave us a vibe of the film. But yeah, it was definitely challenging. But like Lee says, we use both mics or any plant mics as well that have been placed, and phase align them, and then they get balanced in the premix as and even some of the even if the boom is across the other side of the room, it can still help provide us with a mono room reverb that is really intrinsic to the shot and really helps soften aspects of a lav or something like that. If it's more lav heavy, having that still as like an ostensibly just a room echo is really nice. So we always use all those elements wherever we can.
And because we had two characters, then we always had two booms, one for each character. So sometimes the frame would not allow that second one in, and that's when you'd hear it basically just being room reverb, because that one's sitting back and can't get into the frame. But they're all being laid down, because that's the beauty of multi-track. There's no reason to not activate. If you've got an open input, then make sure you're laying it down.
Yeah, so the same.
And those booms were really handy in making, and that set sounds quite good. I didn't know it was a set. I would have thought it was a real house, because the boom does have that natural wood room feel to it, and so you can really feel the liveliness of the space, and especially when they start shouting, and the room really reflects, and it's quite useful.
Yeah, Clark, when he, or Superman in that case, when he gets pissed off and, really picks up, the room is, there was a ceiling to the set, so it didn't open up to the entire soundstage, but it leaks, and there's, more than just the walls. So, he got big. He was pissed.
and the mix there sounds great. There's nowhere to hide. I mean, there wasn't any like music or effects. It was just their talk. So if it was a set, I mean, I wouldn't know either. It didn't sound artificial in any way.
There are some effects.
There are some effects.
There are.
Like he washes his hands or something for like 2 seconds, and
no. There's
backgrounds.
City, which in a scene like that, it's obviously the lion's share of the job is the dialogue, but for sound effects, we've got nowhere to hide, and we have to set a room tone and a sort of city background in way off in the distance that nobody will ever question, and I actually and do that for a very long time. So it was actually a bit of a challenge on the effects side, just to make sure that we never exposed ourselves, but at the same time, really, built this world that they were living in. So
I love the urban ambience that's there and sets the tone. Knowing that we basically were in a sterile, artificial set, and when I heard the final mix, I just thought it was great because there we are. We're in Cleveland Metro, or Metropolis.
Yeah,
you did such a great job that I believed it was a practical set.
Well, now we've achieved something.
Indeed. Let's take a look at this one last clip. So this is Superman and the baby, and they're falling into the antimatter river. And they're also being attacked by Lex's team of raptors.
Oh, you look like shit.
I'm fine. I think we need to get to those portals up there.
Right. How do we work them?
I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Joey!
Nice and slow, back in the cage. What are you gonna do? Splash us?
Yes, with chlorowhitesponic acid.
Have him?
Hot damn.
What?
It's a flying dog. Uh-oh.
What?
Come on. No.
right, so there is a lot happening here, right? You have the sound of the river itself, and then also how it's interacting with Superman. You have the sound of the raptors, you have the portal disintegrating, the baby scared and crying. So what were some of the most challenging aspects for sound editorial and sound design for this scene?
Right. So early on, when we were doing the initial sound design, early sound design phase of this, the VFX really weren't there. It was a sort of a previs looking, just sort of a mess of color and waves. Really couldn't. There was no detail or anything like that. Asked James what he thought this river should sound like, or what it was ultimately going to look like, and the direction he gave was, it's a river of angry numbers. And that was it.
All right.
So I just kind of ran with that and made this kind of, I don't know, like digital waves for the river, and that's sort of the crashing of the cubes is has a little more grounded feel to it. It's a lot of ice and glass and that kind of thing. But I just kind of went with the angriest digital river sound I could come up with, and luckily I was on the same page with him, because that's one of those scenes, one of those set pieces that could go a number of ways. That's so conceptually esoteric when it comes to sound that you could really kind of make anything of it. And so I'm glad that at least I think I understood what he was talking about anyway, making that sound. But that's another tough one, maybe even more difficult than the kaiju scene when it comes to mixing. There's music, not so much dialogue, but there is some, but the music and the effects, because the effects are so broadband, because those sounds of the river tend to be frequency-wise very, very broadband. It eats up a lot of frequency that the music also needs. So it's a little bit tricky for Tim and Chris to navigate, and I apologize for that, Chris, that having to deal with that. But I think they did an excellent job.
Sorry, Chris. I love stepping on all your lines. I'm so sorry.
No, I was going to say, it was probably the most difficult sequence for Tim and I to mix in the film.
Yeah, definitely.
We went through it any number of times, and I think, Tim, you kept saying, can we have a little bit more of this here? But that was a scene, again, that going back to the notion that two or three bad moves on our part can really take an audience member out. And if you take them out for a moment, there's no guarantee that you're going to get them back. So it was crucial that we got the balance right. And the river pie, again, one of my favorite sounds in the film. But it could only play powerfully at times because it really needed to get out of the way of music and actually really some key lines, not just lines, but some yells, really. And
the black hole section in particular was we have Superman 100 yards away, and the audience needs to know that he's in danger of being sucked into a black hole, and meanwhile raging river and music sawing away.
Right.
Yeah, I think in that scene, at one point, I maybe kind of held out too much at the black hole moment. And after multiple viewings, James was like, I want you to lean more into the black hole for a moment here, because it visually it was starting to enunciate itself in such a way that it really supported a sound stepping in and having a moment. But it's really a moment and establishing the sound of the fury of this black hole, but then getting out of the way, as Tim said, to let the music do the work that it needs to do. So a lot of fun in those kind of scenes.
Definitely. We had to find our places to do some pretty significant trade-offs between music and sound effects in that sequence. Took some trial and error and finding out which worked the best, and I think we landed on a great place. When the attack happens and Superman falls into the bismuth and we draw, that's primarily effects driven until he's sort of flowing in the river, and then we transition back to a music-driven section. Aside from the couple moments with the black hole to feature that.
Yeah, right. And in a sequence like that, the sound effects could step in and continue to sell the river, but we've already established the sound of the river, and the sound is so cool that the audience believes it's there even when we hand over to music. And if we continued to try and sell river sounds, we would destroy the energy and magic that the music is bringing there. So it is a dance, and it's probably my favorite thing to do in doing film sound is to find that balance, because it's really where, for me, movie magic kind of takes hold. You have these incredible visuals and a lot of choices to make sonically, and
right.
In that scene, we really had our hands full. But I'm really proud of how it came together.
And jumping back to the dialogue, because Superman, like you said, he has some important lines. He's like, "Hey, pull me out, and this black hole's gonna tear me apart." So, Lee, how do you go about capturing really good sound in a river of antimatter? What was this like to record on set?
I was just waiting for the opportunity to get him out of the river of antimatter, the plastic balls, because that was a brilliant solution by the special effects department to give him that ability to be fighting in this thing where you could, it wasn't like he was lurching and basically it was really hard for him to have balance. So you could sense that in the way his body was moving. The sound was absolutely horrific, but thankfully there was an awful lot because thousands of balls in this big tub that are banging against each other. You just cannot believe how loud it was. To the point where, like I said, lunchtime, just get me out of here. Just give me a break. But we had so many things where we got them out of the plastic balls, and then we were back to rigs where people were floating on rigs where they're suspended on arms and being brought in. The camera and the rigs are basically doing a dance together, and my boom operators are also dancing with them, because the beauty of that is that it's loud, because they're also speaking over the sound of this roaring river pie and everything else that's going on. So it's not quiet dialogue. And so there's projection, which lends itself to an open soundstage with a boom. And so I know that when I hear the perspective in the final mix, I know that boom is working, as well as the wires that are on them. I know that the boom is a character in those dialogue pieces. Am I not correct, Katy, to say that that was a principal element that survived?
It was a combination, because we added some lines for Superman that were a bit more expository in the River Pie. So it was a combination of the production with some added ADR and added efforts and stuff. But there's elements of both there, and it certainly helped that David Corenswet, Superman, was projecting, as Lee says, and even then, the couple of the lines that we still ended up redoing, because I had such a good an original track, even though it was too noisy to salvage, at least it gave us enough of the vibe to be able to reproduce it accurately. But yeah, it was a combination.
Yeah, it was. We spent a lot of days on that. It was a big scene, as it turns out in the final film. It was a tough one, and everyone was glad to. I'm sure we were there for the better part of a week on that scene. If I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well worth the effort. I mean, that's probably one of the coolest scenes, I think, in the whole movie. Well, that's all the time we have for our chat about Superman. Tim, Katy, Lee, David, and Chris, thank you so much for being here to chat about it, and best of luck to all of you this award season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.